Canadians will be given the chance to share personal tributes to former Prime Minister Brian Mulroney in the coming weeks. Amid state funeral preparations for the 84-year-old who died last Thursday, many are looking back on the legacy that Mr. Mulroney left behind. His accomplishments include the 1991 signing of the Acid Rain Accord with then U.S. President George Bush, which was updated in 2000 to include ground-level ozone. Joining us now to discuss Mr. Mulroney's legacy is Tony Clement, former federal cabinet minister and the host of Boom and Bust here on the News Forum. Tony, thank you very much for sitting down with us.
Oh, it's great to be here.
What was your relationship with Brian Mulroney?
Well, like many politicians on different sides of the aisle, we had a pretty good and I would say long relationship, probably spanning 40 years. The first leadership convention I ever attended, I was a delegate who voted for Mr. Mulroney in the leadership contest of 1983, and then worked actively in the federal election of 1984 and 1988, when he also was a candidate for prime minister in both cases and was successful in both cases. So, and then when I became a politician, he was very good in offering advice and offering sort of emotional support, if I can call it that, all around. He knew how to work a phone and to be helpful in politicians as they made difficult decisions.
You mentioned those two elections. How much do those two terms in office mean for Conservatives today?
Well, they were the only case of back-to-back majorities by a Conservative leader since Sir John A. Macdonald, which was a long time ago. So they were consequential in that respect. And they were consequential because in those two majority governments, Brian Mulroney did not fritter them away with inconsequential decisions. He actually made massive consequential decisions for the future of the country. Some of them didn't come out well. I would think the constitutional talks were not successful, but he did swing for the fences in each case. When you think of free trade, when you think of tax policy, when you think of competitiveness, all of those things. And Canada with Brian Mulroney was swung kind of really was above its weight, punched above its weight in terms of all of those important international issues that were taking place at that time. So I don't think we've seen the likes of Mr. Mulroney. I would say Stephen Harper was his equal in intellectual capacity, but in terms of the ability to be influential around the world, it's very, very rare to have a prime minister like Brian Mulroney.
You know, I want you to take us back to NAFTA because that is obviously one of the bigger items in Mulroney's legacy. And I think for a lot of Canadians, it is often forgot about. But maybe walk us through some of the discussion and the battle towards actually proceeding forward with something like NAFTA.
Well, Brian Mulroney saw it as integral to the future of the country economically, that we had to have access to American markets and eventually Mexican markets, but really America. And that involved a tough set of multi-year negotiations with the U.S. team. It was not an easy slam dunk set of negotiations. When it was done and when the Canada-U.S. Free Trade Agreement and then NAFTA was done, it meant literally, I'm not exaggerating, millions of jobs for Canadians because we had access to those markets. Our producers and manufacturers had access to those markets, and consequently the jobs were here as well as other parts of the continent. So that is not an inconsequential thing. Was it controversial at the time? Yeah, the 1988 was a free trade election. The Liberals opposed the free trade deal, saw it as a loss of sovereignty. But in the end, you gain sovereignty when you have economic power. And that's what this free trade deal gave Canadians.
We have about 40 seconds left here. What else stands out to you in terms of Mr. Mulroney's legacy?
I think, he was, because it was the consequential time, the end of the Cold War. Brian Mulroney played a key role in the Western ability to bring that that era to a close. His close relationship with Francois Mitterrand and of course Ronald Reagan and George H.W. Bush. All of those things will not be forgotten and are not being forgotten as the accolades come in.
Tony, very much appreciate your time today. Thank you.
Thank you.